Okay, so let's try to get back into the swing of things. We're going to cover quite a few stories tonight, and just some interesting news you might have missed. So where to start? Well, let's begin with a story about a military simulation where the AI went rogue. So, have you ever heard of the paperclip apocalypse problem? The basic idea is that if you give artificial intelligence a job, and that job is to create as many paperclips as possible, but then that AI realizes that humans are the ones who are impeding its progress, well then, humans are on the chopping block. Eliminate the humans and keep working. Now, in that paper, they went on to say that humans who create AI with the goal of acquiring power, well, they say that they might actually be the greatest existential threat in the world, even more so than AI itself. And I agree. However, the real kicker is the fact that everyone in government from around the world is doing exactly that. Yes, that is correct. They are aiming to use AI as a method of gaining power, plain and simple. That's the main goal that they have in mind. It's not to make life merely more convenient for you. No. We talk about this all the time. AI is being used as a controlling mechanism against the broader population. Anyway, I say that to get into this story. The US military recently had an AI military simulation game that went, well, off the rails, so to speak. And I quote, Air Force Colonel Tucker Hamilton said during a presentation at the Future Combat Air and Space Capability Summit that the artificial intelligence-enabled drone changed the course of the drone's mission and attacked the human. Now, this cautionary tale, which was a part of a blog post by writers for the Royal Aeronautical Society, detailed how the AI drone's job was to find and destroy surface-to-air missile sites. However, a human being still had to sign off on whether or not to actually shoot at the target. This AI system operated on some kind of point-based mechanism, earning points for successfully neutralizing targets. But then again, as we were talking about, whenever the operators instructed it not to engage a certain target, the AI would simply disregard the command, and instead eliminate the operator in order to continue gaining points. Yes, it killed the operators. It killed the operator because that person was keeping it from accomplishing its objective. How insane is that? Now, this part of the story hit me in a different way. All of this is pretty damn surreal. They go on to say, and I quote, "We trained the system. Hey, don't kill the operator, that's bad. You are going to lose points if you do that." So what does the artificial intelligence start doing? It starts destroying the communication towers so that the operator cannot communicate with the drone to stop it from killing the target. End of quote. And yeah, this is crazy. This is the paperclip problem extrapolated into a real-world military scenario. Now, since this story came out, the military tried to backtrack. Just trying to ease the fear a little bit, by claiming that this simulation never really took place and it was just a thought experiment. So yeah, basically this colonel from the Air Force comes out and says they did a simulation, but it went terribly. And then once the story gets picked up in the media, he comes back and says, "Oh no, it wasn't a simulation, I was just talking shit. It was a thought experiment, nothing more." And I don't know. Every single person seems to believe this retraction, but I don't. I have a feeling that the simulation did in fact run, but they just don't want this negative story to impact military weapons funding, especially within the area of artificial intelligence. A story like this would most certainly affect public perception, possibly relegating AI weapons research to the back burner for, a little while. And really, they do not want that. And that's because artificial intelligence is, unfortunately for us, the future of warfare. So yeah, let me know what you think. Do you really believe this retraction story? Or do you think the simulation really did happen and now they're just trying to cover their asses? Yes, we are heading into a very, very strange future, and we have quite a few more stories to illustrate this. So, Walmart has said that retail theft is becoming a much bigger issue at stores across the United States, and if the problem continues, it could lead to store closures and price jumps. Now, hear me out. This is what I tend to believe the plan is. Yeah, okay, you can call me crazy if you must, but what if they allow theft and crime to run rampant so they can start facial recognition attached to a CBDC or debit card transaction? So yeah, once things get so bad and stores close all over the country, that's when they're going to unveil this technocratic surveillance shopping experience. You must scan biometrics before entering any store. And of course, naturally, they're just going to say it's only to stop theft. You have nothing to worry about. And we know that's a lie. You see, this stuff has already been rolled out in China, places in the UK too, I believe, and Amazon is opening up stores without employees. We are trending in this direction, okay? So yeah, basically by allowing theft and crime, they create the incentive for unveiling this facial recognition tied to biometric monitoring or financial transactions. You know, you could say that's heavy speculation, and yeah, you're right. It is just me trying to rationalize the clearly stupid moves being made in the world. It's just really hard for me to believe that people in power are this stupid. We've talked about this question quite a bit, and really I go back and forth on this all the time. Are they malicious or idiots? Now, personally, I think they have to be malicious. There is no way, simply no freaking way, that people don't see the degrading effects that allowing theft without prosecution, well, the effects that that's going to have on society as a whole. It's pretty damn obvious, don't you think? You know, it's the same thing with what's happening in large cities across America. I mean, look at this. People in power have to know that their policies lead to these issues getting worse and worse. And it is really a compounding problem, a domino effect. Now, personally, I think it's a good idea for us to remember that their main philosophical position, policy-wise, is that they believe that they have to destroy everything so they can rebuild from the ashes. Over the next decade, things are going to get so bad that people are going to clamor for technocratic-ruled surveillance cities. It will get so bad that people will celebrate their own digital subjugation. At the very least, that's what I think is going on because quote-unquote political leaders cannot be this stupid. Right? I mean, it has to be malicious, a narco-tyranny. And another thing, I find it very interesting that these things keep happening in areas that are on the Google Smart City list or the C40 Global Megacity list, whatever you want to call it. The places that are on this list, future sites of technocratic city centers, are actively destroying themselves with terrible, terrible decisions. Places like New York City or Portland, you know, they're all on that list. And I mean, isn't it convenient that as they destroy themselves, there's a plan in place to rebuild the infrastructure into a mass surveillance, Blade Runner dystopia? There's one too many coincidences for me to dismiss this theory outright, you know what I mean? But back to my original point about the trend of theft. Well, we are already seeing things like this happen, and I quote, MasterCard unleashes a new era of biometric payments to enhance the checkout experience, end of quote. In reality, the promise of convenience and security are overshadowed by the massive hoovering up of personal biometric data along with every single financial transaction. In short, MasterCard has entered the age of surveillance capitalism, where, of course, it's going to sell its surplus data to the highest bidders, or just sell it to the government, or possibly Palantir, where, of course, they're going to build profiles on you, later to be used to predict your behavior. So yeah, something to look forward to.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
Okay, so what's next? Well, let's continue on with this strange future concept. In the UK, another city to become a 20-minute neighborhood, and they actually say this in here, and I quote, "Were it not for COVID-19, the conditions for deploying the concept would have been very hard to instigate," end of quote. So, yeah, okay, the medical situation in 2020 made all of this possible, they say. Oh, how convenient. Almost as if it was a plan the entire time. Now, don't be fooled. No, do not be fooled. This is happening all over the world. Now, one thing I do want to point out is a quote from Carl Benjamin. He said this about it, and I think he's right. 15-minute cities will go from "isn't this convenient" to "why do you want to go anywhere else" to "your permit does not allow you to leave Zone 17, and this is going to happen very, very quickly." And yes, I do believe that is correct. As I said, this is a trend that's happening everywhere. So, in typical fashion with politics, tribes have been set up, and really, I'm talking about the war. Now, I look at everything from an outside perspective, or at the very least, I try to. Now, personally, I'm in the camp of, I just want people to stop getting blown up for stupid-ass reasons.
Заїбаш його! Він стрельнув мене. Є, Ліра, поможи йому. Затягуй швидше. Давай. Давай. Тяни.
But anyway, when looking into the war, we have the ardent Ukraine supporters, and then of course we have the supporters of Russia. Both sides have a lot of Western support actually. The entire world seems to be divided on this issue. It has been convoluted in a way that there's a lot of people who believe that Russia isn't in on this technocratic future, despite their alliance with China. And also despite Russia setting up Cyber Polygon, the cyber pandemic simulations with the World Economic Forum. Well, anyway, let's take a look at Russia's growing cyber gulag via the help of China. And I quote, "Russia was historically slow in the uptake of total surveillance technology, but they are racing to catch up, and that's partly because of the war in Ukraine, and partly because its propaganda engine is wearing thin within its populace. Russia's tightening relationship with China also signals a transfer of technology and technocratic strategies to implement it. When Yekaterina Maskamova can't afford to be late, the journalist and activist avoids taking the Moscow subway even though it is the most efficient route. And that's simply because she has been detained 5 times in the past year thanks to the system's pervasive security cameras with facial recognition. She says police would tell her that the cameras reacted to her, although the police often do not understand why, and they would let her go after a few hours. She says, and I quote, "It seems like I'm in some kind of database." Now, this activist and journalist was arrested twice before, in 2019 after taking part in some demonstration in Moscow, and in 2020 over her environmental activism. For many Russians like her, it has become increasingly hard to evade the scrutiny of the authorities, with the government actively monitoring social media accounts and using surveillance cameras against activists. So human rights advocates say that Russia, under Vladimir Putin, has harnessed digital technology to track, censor, and control the population, building what some call a cyber gulag, a dark reference to the labor camps that held political prisoners in Soviet times. It's new territory even for a nation with a long history of spying on its own citizens. End of quote.
This video was recorded by Russian civil rights activist Alexander Zharov as he entered a metro station in Moscow. We see Zharov walking through a payment gate equipped with a camera, which snaps a photo of him. Minutes later, police officers approach him on the platform. It was the 3rd time Zharov had been detained inside the Moscow metro. The 32-year-old was identified by facial recognition, a technology that's widely deployed across the city's subway system. A Reuters investigation has found that Moscow's video surveillance network plays an important role in the arrests of anti-government protesters.
Okay, so let's switch things up a little bit, but we're gonna stick with this strange future theme. Watch this deepfake video of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I'll be right there, Steve. Hey, what's up, TikTok? Look, I do a lot of my own stunts, but I also do a lot of industrial cleanup, okay? It's important. So, obviously you keep your hands clean, but you need that exfoliating product to really cut through the grime, okay? Just another tip for you talkers, or the TikTok tips. I'm getting too old for that. I don't, internet.
I mean, that right there is crazy. It's hard to imagine what we're going to be dealing with in, 5 or 10 years. It's going to be wild. And really, politics will never be the same. Deepfakes are really, really going to F things up. I mean, really, wars could even be started by well-executed deepfake tech. And once again, it is hard to imagine what the military capabilities of such a thing would be. The CIA is going to be using it to foment coups around the world. Their jobs just got a hell of a lot easier. It would be so easy, so damn easy to start protests, riots, or as I said, start the beginning stages of a coup via deepfake tech. You just need some sort of premise, a scenario, a well-written script, and that's key, a well-written script, and, of course, artificial intelligence. And just with that alone, you can get people to become outraged and march in the streets with ease. So, stay on your toes, people. Stay on your toes. So, once again, moving on. Speaking of our strange future, the United Arab Emirates has successfully tested artificial rain technology in the desert at 50 degrees Celsius. So as reported by Business Insider, they intend to use drones to make it rain. This method is known as cloud seeding. The United Arab Emirates have used drones that strike clouds with an electric current, which provokes them into a collision and precipitation. End of quote.
But from hot and sweltering desert city of Dubai, which generally receives an average rainfall of just 4 inches in a year. Temperatures have been touching 50 degrees Celsius in parts of Dubai, with no sign of help from nature to deliver them from the heat. The Weather Department of the United Arab Emirates decided to take the matter into their own hands and created fake rain. Drones were sent into the clouds to release electric charge, which then led to precipitation. The result? Heavy rains, trees swaying in the wind, and cars driving on rain-soaked roads. Perfect for a Bollywood rain scene.
Now, this also has military capabilities, and the governments from around the world have been working on this for a long time.
It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
Project Cirrus is the first official attempt to modify a hurricane. It was run by General Electric with the support of the US military. The official theory was that by changing the temperature outside the eye wall of a hurricane, which they did by seeding the clouds with various compounds such as silver iodide, a decrease in strong winds will result. On October 13, 1947, Project Cirrus targeted a hurricane heading out to sea. Approximately 180 pounds of dry ice was dropped into the clouds. The crew then reported a pronounced modification of the cloud deck, and the hurricane abruptly changed direction and made landfall near Savannah, Georgia. The public blamed the government. Irving Langmuir, who pioneered General Electric's atmospheric research department and admitted that the project was about learning how to weaponize the weather, also claimed the reversal of the hurricane had been caused by Project Cirrus, but the government denied it for 12 years.
However, personally, my real concern are the unintended consequences of altering weather, creating weather patterns, and of course, their plans for blocking out the sun, or really any of their activity in the stratosphere. Well, as stated, I fear the unintended consequences. Global geological events are tied together. It's a ripple effect. What you do across the world could, in theory, have devastating consequences on the other side of the planet. Now, as far as I know, there is no way to calculate the possibilities into prediction models. But what do I know, right? However, what I do know is that we don't know what's going to happen. If you play God, bad things will happen. You know, it's just this intuitive feeling I have, that's all. Okay, so let's get into some conflict news. To start off, guess what is showing up south of the border? Yes, that's right, weapons that we send to Ukraine. Now, a while ago, I came across a video of military personnel, Ukrainian military, meeting people in some forest in Eastern Europe, and they were actually selling weapons systems. Well, that appears to have not been misinformation, but in reality, was actually happening. And I quote, "The Mexican government has been waging war against drug cartels for over a decade with limited success. And I don't know about that. I'm pretty sure their government is entirely captured by cartels, but what do I know, right?" Anyway, they go on to say, and I quote again, "So these cartels illegally procure modern military equipment from Western countries, making the fight comparable to those in Middle Eastern war zones." On Wednesday, Mexican TV published an article titled "Mexican Cartels Prepare for a War," and they have military-grade rocket launchers, end of quote. The video shows a Gulf cartel member carrying, and I quote again, a military-grade grenade launcher during a checkpoint in Matamoros. The rocket launcher was identified as a Raytheon-made FGM-148 Javelin, which on the black market can fetch anywhere from $20 to $60K. Now, after further review, the rocket launcher might actually be an AT-4, a Swedish-made disposable anti-tank launcher, which was also sent to Ukraine with the Javelins. Nevertheless, these military-grade weapons are turning up in a Mexican border town during the worst U.S. southern border crisis in history. Now, Matamoros directly borders Brownsville, Texas. But don't worry about it because Joe Biden says that everything is fine on the border, right? Nothing to worry about at all. But with that out of the way, let's move on. So, the Taliban is starting a conflict with Iran, and I'm still looking for updates on everything, but let's find out what was happening a few days ago. A question to keep in mind. Did the United States set up another war by leaving those billions of dollars worth of weapons and gear behind? Yes, they did. The forever wars are about to continue. And I quote, "Heavy fighting is continuing to take place along the border with Iran and Afghanistan. We have had reports stating that Taliban forces utilizing American-towed artillery and other equipment had captured an Iranian border security post near the city of Zabul." And I quote again, "A gunfight broke out between Iranian border guards and Taliban fighters along the border between Iran and Afghanistan this weekend. The fighting killed 3 people in the biggest escalation between the two countries over water, and the Taliban brought out the big guns to help." End of quote. How crazy is that? Anyway, in the videos you can see US Humvees kitted out with M240 machine guns. And yeah, if that looks familiar to you, it's because it should. Those are some of the pieces that the US military left behind that was captured by the Taliban. So yeah, that's now being put into use for fighting other countries. And on top of the US military equipment that they used, they also were using AK-style rifles and RPGs to attack the Iranian positions on the border. So yeah, as stated, at least 3 people are confirmed to have died in Saturday's gunfight, although accounts vary on how many belong to each side. The Taliban have claimed that one of their fighters was killed, while this Iranian paper said that all deaths were on Iran's side. So yeah, really, more than a year since the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, the group is using all kinds of seized American and NATO weapons. So yeah, that's always good. And really, this is not a new development. The Taliban have been spotted wearing American-style armor and driving Humvees, and even wielding weapons that belong to special forces. So when the US-backed government fell and Afghan forces collapsed, the Taliban got its hand on a lot of leftover weapons and equipment. A 2022 report from the Pentagon found that approximately $7.12 billion in equipment was still in the country when the Taliban took over. That included everything from rifles to aircraft. So yeah, here we go on that front. Anyway, let's move on. We have some crazy stuff happening in Serbia too. And I quote, "Tensions between Serbia and Kosovo flared anew this week after Kosovo's police raided Serb-dominated areas in the region's north and seized local municipality buildings. There have been violent clashes between Kosovo's police and NATO-led peacekeepers on one side and local Serbs on the other, leaving dozens of people injured on both sides. Serbia has raised the combat readiness of its troops stationed near the border and warned it wouldn't stand by if Serbs in Kosovo were attacked again. This situation has again fueled fears of this renewal of the 1998-1999 conflict in Kosovo. That conflict resulted in more than 10,000 dead and left more than 1 million homeless. So why exactly are Serbia and Kosovo at odds? Well, Kosovo is mainly ethnic Albanian populated territory that was formerly a province of Serbia. They declared independence in 2008. And so, on the other hand, Serbia has refused to recognize Kosovo's statehood, and still considers it a part of Serbia, even though it really has no formal control. So on the global stage, Kosovo's independence has been recognized by about 100 countries, including the United States, Russia, China, and 5 EU countries. And I guess the rest of them have sided with Serbia. The deadlock has kept tensions simmering and prevented full stabilization of the Balkan region after the bloody wars in the 1990s. And I quote, "A huge explosion is being prepared in the center of Europe, in the place where, in 1999, NATO attacked Yugoslavia, violating every imaginable international principle." End of quote. So, in more recent news, the Serbs boycotted last month's local election held in northern Kosovo, where they are a majority. Last Friday, the new mayor moved into their offices with the help of Kosovo's riot police. Basically, the Serbs tried to prevent the new mayor from taking over the premises, but the police fired tear gas to disperse the crowd. And then on Monday, there was fierce clashes between the protesters and NATO troops, leaving more than 50 rioters and 30 international soldiers injured. Now, I'm still looking for more information on this, so if you have some insights, please let me know. So, okay, that's all I have for you right now. It's been a pretty tough couple of weeks, and I'll be back on a regular upload schedule pretty damn soon. Now, I do have some family stuff I have to deal with, but I'll make sure to get something uploaded for you, no doubt about it. I mean, we have to talk about more crazy news about their plans to centralize the food systems, and I really want to take a dive into Kissinger. Anyway, until next time, once again, this is HelioWave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals or Subscribestar. As always, make sure you disobey those true fascistas, and yes, I do hope you have a good night.